On a frigid morning at Denver International Airport, Captain Aisha Carter, a black pilot with 15,000 flight hours, stood before the Boeing 737 she was supposed to command. But just minutes earlier, she'd been ordered to wait in the hallway like an outsider while a less experienced male pilot was handed her flight. Behind the closed door, she heard the sneers. Passengers won't trust someone like her in the cockpit. Aisha swallowed her humiliation, unaware that her next decision would topple an airline empire, save thousands of lives, and reshape the aviation industry forever. This is a story of courage, defiance, and a shocking twist that left the world stunned. Aisha Carter stood in front of the mirror in her small Atlanta apartment, adjusting the captain's hat on her head. At 38, she had just achieved her lifelong dream, becoming a captain at Horizon Airlines, one of America's largest airlines. With 15,000 flight hours, a degree from a prestigious aviation academy, and glowing recommendations from veteran pilots, Aisha wasn't just an exceptional pilot. She was a rare symbol in an industry where black women made up less than 1% of pilots. Today was her first day at Horizon Airlines, and Aisha couldn't hide the smile on her face as she remembered her first flights with her father, a retired pilot. He'd told her, "Up there, there's no race, no gender, just skill and responsibility." But as Aisha pushed open the glass doors of Horizon Airlines headquarters, she had no idea how brutally her father's words would soon be tested. Day 1. A humiliation she never saw coming. Aisha stepped into the lobby, where light from crystal chandeliers danced on the marble floor. A secretary named Clara greeted her with a forced smile. "Captain Carter, welcome to Horizon Airlines. Your badge is ready. The Chief of Operations wants to see you before the briefing." Aisha frowned. Normally, new pilots went straight to the briefing room, met their crew, and prepped for the flight. A private meeting with the Chief of Operations wasn't standard protocol. But she nodded, keeping her professionalism, and followed Clara to the office of James Harrington, Horizon Airlines Chief of Operations. "Captain Carter." Harrington's voice was cold as she entered. "We're thrilled to have someone with your impressive record join Horizon. However, to ensure a smooth integration, you'll fly today as an observer with Captain Mitchell." Aisha felt her heart clench, but she kept her face neutral. "Sir, with all due respect, I was hired as captain for Flight 514 to Chicago. I've completed all required training and simulations." Harrington smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "It's just procedure, Captain, a step to familiarize you with our ways." 20 minutes later, in the briefing room, Aisha felt every eye on her as she walked in. Captain Mitchell, a man in his 50s with graying temples, gave her a fleeting glance before looking away. The flight coordinator began. "Flight 514 to Chicago. Captain Mitchell will be in command, with First Officer Ryan Ellis." "Excuse me," Aisha interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "There must be a mistake. I was assigned as captain for this flight." The room fell silent. The coordinator glanced at Harrington, who had just walked in. "Captain Carter," Harrington said, his tone icy, "we need you to wait in the hallway for a moment." Aisha felt heat rise to her face, but she didn't let her emotions show. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. This is the briefing for my flight." "It's procedure," Harrington repeated, his voice devoid of emotion. "Please wait in the hallway while we sort out some details." Aisha gripped her flight case so tightly her fingers ached. She stepped outside, the door closing behind her. Through the frosted glass, she heard muffled laughter and whispers. "Who does she think she is? Passengers want a familiar face in the cockpit, not someone like her." 10 minutes later, Harrington opened the door and announced she'd fly as an observer to get accustomed to the company culture. When Aisha protested, he replied bluntly, "These are the rules, Captain. Accept them, or we terminate your contract right now." Aisha swallowed her humiliation and headed to the plane in a role she never imagined she'd take, an observer, not a captain. 3 weeks of hell, uncovering a horrifying truth. Over the next 3 weeks, Aisha was forced to sit in the jump seat in the cockpit, watching less experienced pilots take control of planes she should have been commanding. Captain Peterson, a man with a constant smirk, once asked her to hand him a checklist with a condescending tone. "Can you grab this for me, or is it too technical for you?" Aisha handed him the checklist but didn't stop there. "Captain, if I may, the secondary hydraulic system check isn't complete." Peterson frowned, double-checked, and realized she was right. "Good catch," he muttered, without a hint of gratitude. But what truly alarmed Aisha wasn't the discrimination she endured. During those flights, she began noticing disturbing patterns in Horizon Airlines' maintenance procedures. She overheard a mechanic say to a colleague, "This part's worn out, but the boss said to sign off on it. We're behind schedule." Another time, she saw maintenance reports signed off despite the work never being done. When she asked questions, she got only evasive looks and vague answers. After one flight, Ryan Ellis, a young first officer, pulled Aisha aside in the airport parking lot. "Captain Carter, I need to talk to you," he whispered, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "What they're doing to you isn't normal. This isn't standard procedure. It's deliberate, and it's worse than that. With maintenance, they're cutting corners in dangerous ways." Aisha nodded, a mix of relief and anger washing over her. "I know, Ryan, but I need this job." "It's not just that," Ryan said, his voice trembling. "If no one speaks up, there'll be an accident. I've seen them skip critical safety checks." That night, at her sister Maya's house, a labor law attorney, Aisha poured out her frustration. "They're treating me like an intern, Maya, 15,000 flight hours, and they have me watching like I don't know how to start a plane." Maya shook her head. "This is blatant discrimination, Aisha. We could sue." "And I'd never work in this industry again," Aisha replied, her voice heavy. "But there's something worse. There's an issue with maintenance that could put lives at risk." A near disaster in the sky, a heart-pounding close call. A week into her investigation, Aisha was on a flight from Seattle to Dallas, still relegated to the jump seat. Captain Peterson was in command, with First Officer Ryan Ellis assisting. The flight had been uneventful until they hit 30,000 feet, cruising over the Rocky Mountains. Aisha was reviewing the maintenance logs on her tablet when a sharp alarm blared through the cockpit. "Warning, hydraulic pressure low," the automated voice announced, the red light flashing on the control panel. Peterson's face tightened, but he waved it off. "It's fine. These systems always throw false alarms. We'll check it on the ground." Aisha's stomach dropped. She'd seen the maintenance logs for this plane. There had been a flagged issue with the hydraulic system, but it was marked as resolved without proper documentation. "Captain, we can't ignore this," she said, her voice urgent. "The logs showed a hydraulic issue that wasn't properly addressed. We need to divert now." Peterson turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "Carter, I'm in command here. I said it's fine." Before Aisha could respond, the plane shuddered violently, a sickening lurch that sent her stomach into her throat. The controls stiffened, and Ryan's voice cracked as he called out, "We're losing hydraulic pressure fast. Rudder control is sluggish." Panic gripped the cockpit. Aisha's training kicked in. "We need to declare an emergency and divert to the nearest airport. Salt Lake City is 200 miles out. We can't risk continuing to Dallas." Peterson hesitated, sweat beading on his forehead. "If we divert, the company will have my head for the delay. And if we don't, we might not make it at all." Aisha snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. "Declare the emergency now." Ryan, his hands trembling, grabbed the radio. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Horizon 672. We have a hydraulic failure, requesting immediate diversion to Salt Lake City." The air traffic controller responded swiftly, clearing their path. Aisha leaned forward, her mind racing through emergency procedures she'd memorized years ago. Ryan, lower the gear manually. Use the backup system. Captain, reduce speed to minimize stress on the controls. Peterson, his arrogance shattered, followed her instructions. The next 20 minutes were a nerve-wracking descent, the plane shaking as they fought to maintain control. Isha's heart pounded, but she stayed calm, guiding the crew through each step. Finally, the runway at Salt Lake City came into view, and they touched down with a jarring thud, the plane skidding slightly before coming to a stop. Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft as passengers disembarked, shaken but unharmed. Aisha sat back in the jump seat, her hands trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. She knew the hydraulic failure wasn't a fluke. It was a direct result of Horizon's negligence. This near disaster only fueled her determination to expose the truth. The dangerous quest for evidence, a ticking time bomb. In the days that followed, Isha doubled down on her investigation. With the discreet help of Ryan and a mechanic named Marcus, who was also concerned about the company's practices, she began gathering evidence. They uncovered falsified maintenance reports, critical components past their service life, but only temporarily patched, and a system that silenced dissent. Anyone who spoke up was reassigned to night shifts or fired. "This is a disaster waiting to happen," Marcus said, showing Aisha an engine part that should have been replaced months ago. "But if I report it, I'm out of a job." Aisha clenched her fists, her resolve growing. "If they want me to just observe, then I'll observe, and document everything until I have enough to bring this whole system down." A heart-stopping confrontation at the airport. One morning, Aisha arrived at the airport for Flight 847 to Denver, still as an observer. While reviewing the plane's maintenance logs, she spotted a glaring issue. The primary electrical system hadn't been fully tested, and the signatures on the report looked forged. "This plane can't take off," Aisha told Captain Harris, who was in command of the flight. "What are you talking about, Carter?" Harris snapped. "The maintenance logs are signed off." "The logs aren't in order," Isha replied, her voice steady. "The primary electrical system hasn't been fully tested. We need a re-inspection now." "Do you know we're already behind schedule?" Harris shouted. "You want to mess everything up?" "I'm talking about the safety of 178 passengers and crew," Aisha shot back, unflinching. "I'm not getting on this plane until it's re-inspected." The flight was delayed, and passengers began complaining at the gate. James Harrington stormed in, his face red with fury. "Captain Carter, my office, now." In the office, Aisha faced not only Harrington but also Horizon Airlines CEO, Edward Langston, and two company lawyers. "You just cost us millions with this delay," Harrington roared. "Passenger safety matters more than profits," Aisha replied, her gaze unwavering. "The maintenance logs were falsified. I have proof." "Those are serious allegations," one of the lawyers interjected. "Do you have evidence?" Aisha hesitated. Revealing her evidence now could jeopardize her entire investigation, but she had no choice. "I've been documenting irregularities for weeks, not just with maintenance, but also the discriminatory treatment I've faced since day one." Langston leaned forward, his voice soft but menacing. "Captain Carter, we're a traditional company. Integrating a profile like yours takes time. As for maintenance, I'm sure it's a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding," Isha countered. "I've seen reports signed without checks, components used beyond their safe limits. This is criminal." "That's slander," the lawyer cut in. "You have two options. Retract your statement, call today's incident an overreaction, and we'll move on, or we terminate you immediately, and I guarantee no airline will hire you after this." Aisha felt the weight of the threat. Her 15-year career, her dream of soaring through the skies, it could all vanish. But she thought of the innocent passengers, the flights that could end in disaster. She couldn't stay silent. A devastating betrayal, trust shattered. As Aisha prepared to escalate her investigation, she received a call from Marcus, the mechanic who'd been helping her. "Isha, "We've got a problem," he said, his voice shaky. I messed up. I got scared. They found out I was talking to you." Aisha's heart sank. "What did you do, Marcus?" "They threatened my family," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Harrington's people, they said if I didn't give them something, they'd make sure I never worked again. I told them you were gathering evidence. I'm so sorry, Aisha." Aisha felt the ground shift beneath her. Marcus had been her most trusted ally in this fight, and now he'd betrayed her. "How much did you tell them?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "Everything," Marcus admitted. "They know you've been documenting the maintenance issues. They're coming for you, Aisha. You need to watch your back." The line went dead, leaving Aisha in a cold sweat. She knew what this meant. Horizon would do anything to stop her now. Her evidence, her career, her safety, everything was at risk. But instead of breaking her, the betrayal only steeled her resolve. If they thought they could scare her into silence, they were dead wrong. A threatening encounter, a test of courage. 2 nights later, as Aisha left the airport after a late flight, she noticed a black SUV trailing her in the parking lot. Her instincts kicked in. She quickened her pace, her hand gripping the pepper spray in her bag. But before she could reach her car, the SUV pulled up beside her, and 2 men in dark suits stepped out. "Captain Carter," one of them said, his voice low and menacing. "You've been causing a lot of trouble for Horizon Airlines." Aisha's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I don't know who you are, but you need to back off." The man smirked, stepping closer. "We're here to deliver a message. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. We know where you live. We know where your sister lives. Accidents happen, especially in your line of work." Aisha's blood ran cold, but she refused to show fear. "If you think you can intimidate me into silence, you don't know who I am. I've faced worse than you in the cockpit. Now get out of my way." The men exchanged a glance, then stepped back. "You've been warned," the first man said before they got back into the SUV and drove off. Aisha stood frozen for a moment, her hands shaking as she unlocked her car. The threat was real, and the stakes had never been higher. But instead of backing down, she felt a fire ignite within her. They could threaten her all they wanted. She wasn't going to stop until Horizon was held accountable. A shocking twist. An ally from the shadows. That night in her apartment, Aisha sat with Maya, spreading all her evidence across the table. "This isn't just about me anymore, Maya," Aisha said. "This is criminal. The FAA needs to know." "You'll lose everything," Maya said, her voice filled with worry. "But you could also save thousands of lives." Just then, Aisha's phone rang. An unfamiliar voice spoke. "Captain Carter, this is Ethan Brooks, a former chief mechanic at Horizon Airlines. I quit a year ago because I couldn't stand their practices. I heard about you through Ryan Ellis. I have more evidence. Internal emails from management, explicitly ordering falsified reports to cut costs." Aisha froze. This was the twist she hadn't seen coming. An ally from the shadows bringing the final piece to bring down Horizon Airlines. "Send them to me now," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. With Ethan's emails, Aisha now had undeniable proof. Direct orders from CEO Langston and Harrington to skip safety checks to keep the schedule. The decisive move facing the FAA. The next morning, Aisha walked into the FAA headquarters in Washington, D.C., carrying a thick folder of evidence. Her heart pounded, but she knew she was doing the right thing. After 3 hours of presenting her case to investigators, she left the building with a sense of relief. The FAA had launched a formal investigation. 2 days later, the news exploded. Pilot exposes Horizon Airlines, falsified maintenance and discrimination. Other Horizon employees began speaking out, corroborating Aisha's story. The company tried to fight back, labeling her a problem employee. But the truth couldn't be buried. A second shock. A bribe to sigh. A week later, Aisha was summoned to Edward Langston's office. He looked haggard, his former arrogance gone as he sat across from her with his lawyers. Captain Carter, Langston said, "We have an offer, $3 million, plus a letter of recommendation for any airline you choose. In return, you sign this confidentiality agreement and withdraw your allegations." Aisha stared at the check. $3 million, enough to live comfortably for life, even buy her own plane. But she thought of the flights she'd refused to let take off, the passengers who didn't know they'd narrowly escaped disaster. "I don't care about money," she said, sliding the check back. "I care that no pilot has to choose between their career and their ethics, that no passenger boards a plane with neglected maintenance, and that no qualified woman is told to wait in the hallway because of her skin color." The fall of Horizon Airlines. The FAA investigation escalated quickly. Investors pulled out, clients canceled contracts, and passengers turned to competitors. The final blow came when the FAA suspended Horizon Airlines' operating certificate for systemic and severe violations of safety regulations. Already financially weakened, the company couldn't survive. 3 months later, Horizon Airlines filed for bankruptcy. James Harrington and Edward Langston were indicted for fraud and reckless endangerment of public safety. The once untouchable airline empire crumbled like a house of cards. Aisha's new journey. The months that followed were tough for Aisha. Despite being protected as a whistleblower, she was shunned by parts of the aviation industry, seen as a troublemaker. But a light at the end of the tunnel came when Sarah Nguyen, CEO of Pacific Sky, a rising airline, reached out. "We need people like you." Brave and principled, Nguyen said, offering Aisha not only a captain position, but also the role of Director of Operational Safety. 5 years later, Aisha was more than a captain. She was an icon in aviation. She spoke at conferences on safety and corporate culture, mentoring young pilots from underrepresented groups. One day at the airport, a young pilot named Sophia Lopez ran up to her. "Captain Carter, I'm Sophia. I just got accepted into Pacific Sky's training program. Your story gave me the courage to keep going, even when they said people like me don't belong in the cockpit." Aisha smiled, remembering the day she was told to wait in the hallway. "Never let anyone make you wait outside, Sophia. The sky belongs to everyone." As Aisha stepped into the cockpit of a Boeing 787, she looked out the window at the endless horizon. Pacific Sky 321, cleared for takeoff. The air traffic controller's voice crackled through the radio. "Pacific Sky 321, commencing rollout," Aisha replied, easing the throttles forward. The plane surged down the runway, breaking free from the ground, soaring into the sky. Just as Aisha had risen above every barrier to claim her freedom. Not just for herself, but for all who would fly after her.